What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto, where you wanna get the city love. I'm from Toronto, where you wanna get the city love. I'm in Toronto, like we wanna get the city love. My city love me back for my city love.
Welcome to episode 1508 of Toronto Mic'd, proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. The Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, the best baseball in the city outside the Dome. Join me, I'm at Christie Pitts. July 7th, that's a Sunday. Join me there. I've got Mike Richards, I got TML CEO Keith Stein, I got a whole bunch of amazing people joining me. Be there, say hi. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. Season 6 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning Moneris podcast hosted by FOTM Al Grego and Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, making his Toronto Mic debut is Don Pyle. Welcome, Don.
Hello there.
Okay, let me tell you how we're connected, Mr. Pyle. Okay. So, firstly, I get a note from Alan Zweig. Do you know Alan Zweig?
Oh, yes, I do.
How do you know Alan?
Well, I first met him. I used to work in a used record store for many years, 8 years, and Alan was one of the regular people that came in.
I'll bet.
One of the kind of record sort of oddballs that should have been featured in his documentary Vinyl.
Yeah.
But wasn't. But I was in it, yeah, I think the first time I actually had a conversation with Alan was when I showed up at his door to look at his apartment that was for rent, and we were both kind of confused, looking at each other like, "You're the guy from the record store. Like, what are you doing at my door?"
And he must have known your history in this, your musical history, your roots, going back, right? To,
yeah, I mean,
Crash Kills 5.
Well, in the record store days, that was kind of just when, Crash Kills 5 was I was still in Crash Kills 5 when I started working.
Right.
So, kind of through that and the beginning of Shadowy Men, etc.
Okay, a lot of ground to cover here. Did I mention that Don Pyle is a founding member of Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet? I didn't want to bury the lead here. We got a lot of ground to cover. But so Alan says, hey, Don, you should have Don Pyle on. And I'm like, I know, I really do want, because he heard me going off about how basically what he heard on Toronto Mic'd, Mr. Zweig, was that I didn't know until the documentary that was on Prime, I didn't know Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet played live every episode of Kids in the Hall, like the song Having an Average Weekend, which we'll get to in this conversation. I didn't know that it was played live for every single episode until I saw this documentary.
Well, it wasn't.
Whoa, Don! Because FOTM Paul Myers wrote a book, and that was the basis for this Prime documentary. I feel like any Kids in the Hall fan has seen the doc by now. And they make it very clear in the documentary, which you've seen it?
Oh, yeah.
They make it very clear. Shadowy Men, Don, I'm going to mansplain to you. Okay? Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet played Having an Average Weekend live every single episode. How can that not be true?
Well, we didn't play that song because, it's all edited and pre-recorded, and has to be the exact length of time and stuff like that. But we played to the studio audience before and during every single taping of the show. So we saw every single thing that didn't make it to the show at least twice. Sometimes 4 times, sometimes 6 times, because they'd just keep rewriting them until they got it right, and sometimes they never did.
Sometimes they never did. But this is interesting. So they're kind of playing a little fast and loose with the facts, because you are playing live every episode, but they make it sound in the doc like that version of Having an Average Weekend you hear when you're watching Kids in the Hall.
Oh, you know how documentaries are. They're never right.
Well, Alan Zweig taught me that. So interesting fact right off the top. We're going to dive into all this, but then just to fast forward, I was at Christie Pitts 2 Sundays ago, and I'm watching the Toronto Maple Leafs play baseball there. Have you ever seen a baseball game at Christie Pitts?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you've seen the Leafs. I got a book, by the way, that brown book there.
I'm a 1,508th Toronto person. I know Christy Pitts.
Well, that's a special number. I saved it for you, Don. But this book right here is the history of Toronto Maple Leafs baseball, and you're going home with that. But I'm there watching the game, and I'm hanging out with Blair Packham from the Jitters. And Blair Packham points out that you cut his hair.
Yep.
Okay, so you also cut Alan Zweig's hair.
Yep.
There's a lot of ground we're covering here because we got music to get to. But before we get to the music, who's got better hair, Alan Zweig or Blair Packham?
Well, Blair cares about his more. And, I'm not saying that in any as an insult to Alan, because after I cut his hair, his usual thing is to completely mess it up after I get it looking
that's the look.
Really good,
right.
and then he messes it to see how it would look as he is going to usually wear it.
But are you cutting hair of any other famous people I should know about before we get back to Crash Kills 5?
Gosh, I don't know. I'm afraid to say anybody's name in case they are the ones that I leave out are offended that they weren't famous enough.
Right, you're going to get notes like, how did you not mention me? You mentioned the guy from the Jitters. Okay, so there's a fun fact off the top. How long have you been cutting hair for?
I guess about just 7, 8 years.
Okay. And clearly you're good at it because Blair raves about you as a barber.
Well, I got to say, have you seen old Jitters record covers?
Yes.
I've looked at, when I worked at the record store, I would look at his picture because, it was a Canadian band.
It's that water place where they do the water. At
the Harrison Water Treatment.
That's what it's called.
and I would think, God, that guy really needs a haircut. But that was long before
It's funny how the world works.
Learned how to cut hair. And then one day he walked into the barber shop and I'm like, it's destiny. I'm about to make Blair look better.
Okay, amazing. He owes everything to you because he's actually never looked better and he seems like a happy guy these days. So just wanted to get the Alan Zweig, Blair Packham connections out of the way here. It turns out Blair cares more about his hair, but that doesn't mean he has better hair. Alan's got great hair. You cut Alan's brother. Oh, Alan's brother had great hair. Okay, let's move on here. I don't want to hair shame anybody, but Mike from K-Dub said, Don's an awesome musician and his photography collection would be worth an episode on its own. So because I don't have many notes on the photography collection, could you tell us about this photography collection before I get into the music?
Pretty much starting when I was 14 years old, I started taking a camera to shows. Well, I mean, even before that, but those first pictures are CNE Grandstand where you're way at the back using an Instamatic camera with a flash. And so you have, some barely lit backs of heads of the 10 rows in front of you and a little lit spot way in the distance. Starting 1976, I bought a 35 millimeter camera and, took my camera to a lot of punk shows. I was really going to, as many shows as I could right as it was beginning. I photographed the first Ramones show.
So was that a Gary's presentation?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, it was. Yeah, because it was at the New Yorker Theater.
Right, yeah. Because Gary Topp's got a new book or something coming out. So I think we're going to see a lot of Gary Topp in the media soon.
Yeah, a book about Gary that he's not putting out, but other people are doing a book about him.
Derek Emerson's involved. And, Top. I know Gary Topp's been over here, but he was coming back and he said, I have to wait to tell my stories until the book comes out because he doesn't want to blow his stories, but I have them all anyway. Sorry, Gary. But.
And I just saw a flyer on the social media today that the Ramones' second show in Toronto, which I photographed, was 48 years ago or 46 years ago today.
Was that from Scott Turner? I feel like that's a Scott Turner post on social media.
No, that's that. I think it's the Toronto Queen West Facebook group.
All right, cool. I
didn't want to say the name of
you can do
the media, but I just did.
Well, you can shout out all media, this fiercely independent basement. Oh, I was going to say Basement Dweller, but I realized I actually have a quick note here from Basement Dweller before I play something from the early days of your musical life here. But Basement Dweller says, I used to sell tapes to Don when he worked at Driftwood Music in the 80s. So Basement Dweller says hi.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I mean, I don't know about that person particularly because
he wouldn't lie to me.
I don't remember anybody specifically named Basement Dweller.
Basement Dweller.
But yes, we did buy tapes and people would steal those all the time.
Okay, man, just sprinkle stories through it. But I'm going to play a little music to get us cooking. You comfortable there? You got your water, but let me tell you, I will send you home with some fresh craft beer from Great Lakes Brewery.
I'm very happy about that.
So you'll get the fresh craft beer, but did you bring you got a good backpack over there. Okay. Because, do you call it a backpack or a knapsack? Backpack. Okay. Why? Because I always call it a knapsack. I'm like, you mean backpack? And I'm like, well, why do I call it a knapsack? Like, where does that come from?
So you can use it as a pillow when you have a nap.
Okay, smart. You're a smart guy. This red box is empty, my friend, but it won't be empty when you leave because Palma Pasta sent over a large frozen lasagna that I'm going to send you home with. So
thank you, Palma.
Palma sent you lasagna. I saw them at the Taste of Little Italy. The Taste of Little Italy this weekend. I saw Palma Pasta and I saw Great Lakes Brewery there as well. So shout them both out. And you got your book, and I just want to give you a measuring tape from Ridley Funeral Home. Don, measure what you wish.
Well, I mean, funeral home, I'm going to use it there. It's funny, I went to a party on Saturday night, and there was a band playing, and a band from Guelph called the Flamingos, and two of the guys in that band were in an instrumental band called Legato Vipers, who I recorded and mixed at a funeral home right around the corner from where I grew up. It was when I showed up at the location, I was like, oh my God. Like,
is there good acoustics in a funeral home?
They're dead.
Dead, right? Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking now because Ridley Funeral Home is at 14th and Lakeshore, and maybe we should be recording there. Like maybe it'll sound better there. But you got a measuring tape there.
I'm very, very happy about a measuring tape from a funeral home.
And then last shout out before I press play on this first song, and then it's pretty much all music the rest of the way, is that box you got there, that is a wireless speaker from Moneris.
Wow.
And if you scan that QR code, you'll subscribe to Yes, We Are Open, which is an award-winning podcast from Moneris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. And season 6 just dropped. You can actually hear Al kicking out jams related to season 6. A recent episode of Toronto Mike. Find the Al Grego episode a couple of weeks back. But yes, he travels this country talking to small business owners, and he collects their inspiring stories, and he shares them with us on Yes, We Are Open. So you've got a wireless speaker. You can listen to Yes, We Are Open and anything else you want to listen to. That's it. Okay, Don, let's play this, and then I got to talk to you about it.
Oh, God.
It's etched on my brain. I can still feel the pain. What I did when I was just a kid, just to sing. I am to
You want
blame.
these?
Everywhere I go, it's always there. Everywhere I go, it's always there.
Why that initial reaction? Oh, God. I think it sounds amazing.
Well, you know, when you're like 17, 18, making a record, especially being a singer, it's like, when we did our second, this is our first time in the studio. When we did our second session, I just instantly like, oh my God, I can't stand the sound of my voice. This is awful. I have to quit the band. I can't do this anymore.
Well, you know who you sound a little like? Joey Ramone.
Well, you know, I definitely listen to the Ramones.
There's an inspiration there for sure. So Crash Kills 5. That name, does it come out of is that a headline in the newspaper that basically you saw?
Well, it's sort of a combination of, like, you know, one of the worst headlines that you'd see and the Dave Clark 5.
Okay, great. So Crash Kills 5. You're literally a teenager. You're singing. That is your voice I'm hearing there. And this is just a local punk band you started.
Yeah, well, they were, three of the three musicians in the band, the guitar player, the bass player, and the drummer, Alex, Reed, and Brian, were from Alberta, Calgary, and Edmonton, and I was pen pals with Alex, their drummer, when I was like 14, 15, God, perhaps even younger. And eventually they moved to Toronto, and, you know, they had a band out in Calgary, and when they came out here, I was hanging out with them, and they asked me to just, you know, kind of sing until they found a singer. They were auditioning singers, and then they were like, hey, you should just be the singer in the band. So, you know, that's...
so you were the singer in Crash Kills 5.
Yep.
So now's a good time maybe to get the... let me play a little music to introduce us. And there won't be any singing in this song, but this is just to warm us up a little bit. Just a little... right, Don, I'm very interested in the Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet origin story here, so don't spare any details. We are listening to Good Cop, Bad Cop, just to set the mood here, but...
Well, Brian, who's a guitar player in Shadowy Men, he quit Crash Kills 5 about halfway through our sort of like 2.5-year run, and played with a few other people. He was in Screamin' Sam, and I don't know who else, but Reed, the bass player, also played in a couple of other bands, a band called The Good Guys, and he had a duo with Bruce McCullough from the Kids in the Hall called Orion's Belt. So in Crash Kills 5, and kind of back then, Brian had a Porta studio, like a 4-track or a 6-track cassette recorder, and him and Reed, kind of like, it was a lot of hard feelings at the end of the band, and so they weren't really friendly with each other so much, but mostly because they weren't seeing each other. Meanwhile, Brian and I, and Reed and I, were both still good. And Brian and I were working together in another record store, and so I went over to Brian's place to hang out one day, and he was wrapping up a session. He was recording Orion's Belt songs in his apartment that were basically like a drum machine, bass, and singing. And so I arrived as they were saying their awkward goodbyes, and they were both being kind of like very sort of like coy and nice to each other, like kind of like, we should play together. Or, what do you think about that? Do you want to play together, make some music? And they're like, yeah, let's try that. Well, who should we get the drum? And I kind of forced myself on them. I said, I'll do it, even though I'd never ever played drums in my life. I was going to ask you,
because you were singing in Crash Kills 5, you're singing.
Yeah, I mean, I was
because they needed a singer, right? Yeah, you were done with that.
Who needs a singer? Nobody needs a singer.
Okay, but you say that, and it turns out you're correct. But at the time, was the plan to have a singer with Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet?
Well, yeah, because we actually did have a singer. There was a fourth guy, Ken Priestley, who had been in that band, The Good Guys, with Reed, and had also been in kind of like a Toronto punk band called The Dead Bunnies. So we loved Ken and loved his singing, and so he came for the first couple of practices, but he was living up kind of like North Scarborough, and after 2 practices, he realized we weren't going anywhere, so he decided not to come anymore. And so it was like literally we just kept going without the singer. We had, even our first 2 practices, we were like writing songs right away. It's like I literally had like 2 drums, like sort of like Jesus and Mary Chain set up, like a floor tom and a snare drum. And then, bit by bit I acquired more drums and kind of just kept rolling along. But so Ken stopped coming, and then we, kind of after a while, it wasn't that we were ever consciously an instrumental band. We sort of suddenly realized, we're an instrumental band. And we realized pretty quickly how freeing that was for a lot of things. Because people started, once we started playing shows, people were asking us to do soundtracks, which we thought was kind of hilarious, because it was just like, I've learned this so many times from like scoring film or whatever, that people have a hard time kind of imagining beyond what's in front of them, Right. So if people hear like a really amazing band with a singer and then a really sort of clunky instrumental band, and they want instrumental music for their film, they always think of the clunky instrumental band, not like, maybe we can get the singer to play tambourine or something. And, right. And so, we didn't need a PA, so we could like play on the street. We played in like store windows and, at the beach, and just kind of, any place where we could plug into something, but without having to carry extra equipment around. And we also learned like from years and years of touring that 3 is just like the ideal number for a band. I've been in bands of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people, like all of those numbers, and 3 is ideal.
3 is the ideal number. You don't need a singer, obviously. But what made you think you could play drums? Like, this is how it works? You're talking to a guy, I don't know, Gene Champagne gave me these teenage head
Wow.
drumsticks. So I've been picking them up, like, just because I need to do something. And I've been kind of, like, I don't know what I'm doing. But what, was this you as a teenager? You're like, I can play drums? Like, you had no background?
No, I wasn't even a teenager. I was 23 years old.
well.
And I thought at the time, like, I'm way too old to start learning how to play an instrument, because anybody I knew at that point who played an instrument had been playing since they were a child. So I thought it was futile. And, it half was. I kind of picked up on it, but I realized pretty quickly that all those, years of just kind of tapping on your lap, that they do something to you. If you're, I was super, still am super into music and rather obsessive about a lot of aspects of it. And so, when I listened to records, when I was younger and had more time, I would sit and like stare at the cover or read the words like in real time along with it and read all the credits and take everything in. And so I think just from like tapping on my lap and tapping my foot, that I had a pretty good sense of how to take apart the various sounds and, had like the sort of beginnings of coordination. But, I mean, the earliest recordings of us, they're hilarious, and they're, but I love them too, because, they're, it's something that I, just can't recreate. And, I don't know, like I have long thought that, I was very fortunate to play with 2 guys who were like such accomplished musicians and could have been playing with like the best drummers. But, it's kind of part of the uniqueness of our sound that, it's kind of like, amazing bass player, amazing guitar player, and, a lumpy drummer.
It worked. And, what a trio. So, again, I'm just going to let the listenership know that, yes, I will soon be playing, having an average weekend, and we'll get that full story. It's interesting looking back at Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet, because I've been listening to a lot of Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet over the past couple of weeks, like anticipating your arrival. And it's just also freaking good. Like, here, I censored myself. I'm not sure. Can I swear in front of you, Don? Can I say that? So they're also fucking good. Like, and then I'm thinking, like, it kind of has, absolutely, without a doubt, it's got that Pulp Fiction, like, oh, we're going to play some surf rock now, so sometimes I'm listening to you and I feel like I'm getting high on heroin or something, like the character, is it Vince Vega, I guess it was, right?
Well, we're a lot squarer than that. I don't think any of us have ever done that.
Well, you're drinking a water,
yes.
so that's how square you are.
Yeah.
But
and we predate Pulp Fiction.
Oh, big time. Well, that's not yet 94, but I hear a lot of surf rock, I guess we'll call it. But how would you define that sound? It's very surf rocky, but it's kind of punky. It's kind of all over the place. And does it hurt a band to not fit effectively into one of the many marketing packages that have been pre-prepared for you?
I think most bands, it does. And I think that it's an unfortunate thing of our times, and that we've gone more and more towards things being so compartmentalized and very genre specific, and people who apply for, like, as an example, when I did my first book, I tried to get a grant for it, because I was like spending more than a year on it without earning anything from it. And so when I looked around, it was like, it doesn't matter if you have done this many records or scored this many films or produced this many records. That doesn't matter if you are not staying within your path. Kind of like all of those things really inform each other, kind of like storytelling and narrative and film and editing, all that stuff. They all to me they kind of blend together. So, there are always bands that kind of like slip out of that sort of regimented, formula.
The confines, yeah.
Yeah, and we were,
genre.
I think we were pretty lucky that we were one of them. And we kind of thought like we can do anything. Like we were, we felt sort of empowered by, like I said, like some of the freedoms that we had. And there were a lot of things going on in the Toronto music scene at the time that we didn't identify with. There were very few bands that we thought of as peers or friends. And so we connected a lot more with bands in other cities. And so we were going, Olympia, Washington, and Chicago, and and Detroit, going to other places that we honestly didn't think anything of it. It's just like, we're going there because we have someone who's a friend in a band, and there's a situation for us to play, and people that we want to meet.
Okay, so we have you. You're not just playing Queen Street here. You're all over North America, but you also end up DJ John Peel's BBC show. Like how do you end up? Because I was reading you're one of the first Canadian bands to record for BBC DJ John Peel's radio show.
Yeah.
How does that come to be? He just was a fan?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I sent him our first single. Like, after, of course, I knew who John Peel was. But I sent him our singles as they were coming out, and immediately from the first one, he wrote back to me. It's like, this is great. Please send me more as you put them out. And so, we had a little bit of I wouldn't say rapport, but, it's like I would send him a record, and
he knows you exist, and he likes what he hears, and he wants more.
Yeah. And
that's a rapport.
And, I have these nice notes from him that was like, clear you actually listen to this and have an opinion about it. And so
well, he didn't if he said, "Oh, you have great lyrics. I love listening to your lyrics."
Well, that could be something John Peel would say, though, because he was pretty funny.
Okay, that's amazing, right? And that's amazing. Now I'm gonna ask you, because it is Toronto, Mike, so yeah, this is great that you're in Olympia, you're in Chicagoland, you're all over the place, but what about a station? I'm thinking of a station that should be embracing this kind of sound, this kind of eclectic sound, which is kind of punky, surf rocky. It's kind of all over the place. What about CFNY?
CFNY? I don't know if they really played us. I'm trying to remember. It's funny. I don't when CFNY began and they were like broadcasting out of a little house somewhere north of the city.
Brampton.
That's where it was.
Yeah, little yellow house.
And I loved that station. It was like fantastic. And, I had already knew about FM radio and a lot of the stuff that I liked, like Sparks or Roxy Music, you wouldn't hear them on any of the other radio stations. They would only be on
Q107. You had to go to CFNY to hear that.
Yeah. But even CFNY, like I'm sort of like predating that even. I remember that like a radio station in Calgary when I was out there visiting my brother, University of Calgary, like hearing Sparks on the radio and just being like, oh my God, I have never heard Sparks on the radio ever. So, CFNY, well, I guess they did play us and support us a bit because they had that awards thing at the beginning, the Casbys.
The UNOs became the Casbys.
Yeah. So the Casbys, and we won a Casby one year. They're the first award.
That's supportive, Don. Come on, what does it take to support you guys?
I kind of forgot about it. Awards.
I'm jogging the memory here. So there was some support. Like you must have had a champion of some. I don't know if it would be like it would probably predates Hal Harbor. I'm trying to think, but Ivor Hamilton or somebody on the inside.
Well, honestly, we were much more aligned with CKLN. That was we made friends with people there who saw us play, and they were playing us a lot. And
you want to name check anyone at CKLN? I feel like Blair was there at the time. Blair Packham,
I don't know.
Possibly at CKLN at that time.
Marva Jackson, she was a big supporter. We did a theme song for her show that we recorded with Steve Albini. And it was like, okay, we have enough time to like do a few more things. So let's do like, this radio spot for our friend. And Mike Dwyer, his radio show. I think actually like the very second time that we played after our first show at the Rivoli, we were asked to come into CKLN and like play in a studio that was like, we were in a room that was like literally like 5 feet by 8 feet. And it sounds like so hilariously atrocious. It's so like thin and like the balance is way off. It was just like, I think it was like, one sort of like, dynamic mic and something, but, college radio in general, college and community radio and all across Canada were very, very supportive of us. And we got played a lot in community radio and, made lots of friends and acquaintances and situations to go and play through kind of the network of community radio.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about one more show, Coast to Coast on CBC Radio. What about Brave New Waves?
Well, of course, another Brave New Waves, like such an essential show. They were a huge part of, I know a lot of people like really have sort of fond experiences and memories of Brave New Waves. And I don't know, I think it's sort of like easy when institutions sort of get into this place of sort of like nostalgic, reflective love. But I've got to say, there were two things that I always think of as like really unifying bands across Canada that were playing, kind of similar clubs to us. And that was It Came From Canada albums that Og Records, Deja Voodoo were doing. And then Brave New Waves. Like Brave New Waves was so essential in connecting people all across the country. So many, we would get letters from people. We'd write letters to people and, it's like buy records through the mail. And Brave New Waves had us in to do sessions there. So, very, very similar to the Peel sessions, except that, Canada is just a different country. So they don't have that same kind of like iconic veneer over them that the British, do. But starting from Augusta LePage and then Brent Bambury and then Patty Schmidt, all three of them were very, very generous supporters of us. And we got invited to do some really fun things with them.
Amazing. Now, since I've already given you a wireless speaker, I'm giving you homework, which is when you get a chance, listen to Brent Bambury sitting here in the basement talking to me on Toronto Mic'd, and we walk through it. I think you dig it, the Brave New Waves episode of Toronto Mic'd with Brent Bambury.
Yeah, we had Brent, all of them. We were like, as soon as we met, we were like instant friends. We would go out for dinners with them and, kind of like, be social and, all really wonderful. And there were so many good people working at Brave New Waves, like not just the hosts, so many researchers and staff that were there for quite a long time. And, of course that got decimated, axed a bit at a time. So,
shout out to Michael Barclay too, who's still covering the scene with his Substack and does a great job. So shout out, and he was on that show as well. Let me just let the listenership know that you did drop the name Steve Albini, and I just want everyone to know that I will absolutely be drilling into Don Pyle's head at some point soon, once we get to, I guess, sport fishing, the lure of the bait, the luck of the bait. But because on our way there, so that's in 93. So on our way there, I think it's time to talk about this song and talk about a certain sketch comedy show that I was going to say I adored, but I actually still adore it. So let's hear a bit of this. So far in this conversation, Don, I've heard you say the name Bruce McAuliffe, so I know that name's going to come back here again. And I also heard you say the Rivoli, so I feel like I'm connecting a bunch of dots in my head. But you're here. Why would I bother connecting dots when I can hear it straight from Don Pyle's mouth here? Okay, how does it come to be that this song, which you can hear on Savvy Showstoppers, that this song becomes the theme song to Kids in the Hall?
Well, it was, really about that. It's funny. I think about the expression it's like, or people use it as an insult or, pejoratively to say it's like, who you know. And it is who you know. But in this case, it was like friends who are unknown, don't have a TV show or anything, can't get more than 4 people to come and see them. that were friends of ours.
Right.
So Bruce grew up in Edmonton, where Brian grew up, and then moved to Calgary, where he was friends with Reed and Brian from Shadowy Men. He worked at Canada Dry with Reed, loading trucks, and kind of followed them after they moved out to Toronto. He came out a couple of times and stayed in my mother's basement. And so when he arrived here, he was already doing sketch comedy out west, I think in Loose Moose.
Do you remember the name of that troupe? I know this.
He was in the audience.
The Audience. That's the name of it, right? What a name. Okay, yeah, because I do believe there's a moment in the history of Kids in the Hall where they have to choose which name they're going to keep.
Yeah, they were,
The Audience or Kids in the Hall.
Yeah, there were kind of two troops going sort of simultaneously.
One from Alberta and one from Toronto.
Right?
Pre-Scott Thompson, because Scott's like the guy who comes in late.
Yeah, he's sort of like the add-on.
Right.
So Reed went to college for theater tech, and so he started doing their live tech, like doing their sound and doing their music cues and stuff like that.
Right.
And this was like literally like their very beginning. Like I would go to a lot of their shows, partly because Reed, it was like to hang out with Reed, and and them live, it was very hit and miss. And comedy, if you've ever been in an audience where nobody's laughing, comedy isn't as funny when people aren't laughing.
No, I had that experience on Friday night, so yeah.
If you're in a group of people and they're laughing, it makes the most like banal thing sound funny.
Absolutely.
So Reed was doing their tech, and then because we were friends and we were free, they, started asking us, like, can you guys do a piece of music for us to, for this scene? So, we were doing the occasional piece of music for them. And then we did some like shows together where like Bruce, he did this character called Trawmouth that was basically Cabbage Head, but before Cabbage Head. It was like an angry dad character. And so like Trawmouth opened for us, played with us. Kevin McDonald, he opened for us once as a magician who didn't know how to do magic. I forget what, Kevin the Impossibilist.
Love it.
Scott Thompson sang with us as Buddy. So, then eventually they did this theater show. And that theater show sort of resulted in, sort of long story short, getting a TV series. So, we played every night, like behind a curtain. And it was at that show that they were asking us, can you guys play Bennett Cerf to open the show? So, literally like 6 nights of the 7-night run went by, and they asked us, why do you keep playing that song to open? Well, that's the song you asked for. They're like, no, it's the one that goes doo doo doo. So they had asked for the wrong song. So we'd open the show, and then the show got held over for a week so that some people could come and see them and give them a TV show.
Yeah, Lorne Michaels, I suppose, would be in that mix.
And then we started playing that, and then kind of things sort of Lorne workshopped them at clubs in New York, and then pilfered a couple of them to write on SNL, and did things that were probably, definitely were helpful, but also really challenging to keep a group together. But the kids, like we had worked together and had just like such a great working relationship and very similar sensibilities, which I think is something that has crossed over continuously. We all were raised on and had real attachment to Rocky and Bullwinkle and Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, and I think Monty Python is given maybe a little more credit than credit is due, because I think Daffy Duck was probably a bigger influence on Kids in the Hall than Monty Python may have been.
Okay.
So yeah, we and then when they got the TV series, Lorne, wanted basically an SNL band, to do it, and the kids fought for us. So we it was a very organic relationship.
Amazing. Okay, so then this is happening at the Rivoli? Is that where this is happening?
No, we did some stuff at the Rivoli with them, but we did when Kevin played with us, it was at Lee's Palace,
Okay.
but the Rivoli. I mean, we did our very first show at the Rivoli, and it was sort of like our house club. We did our kind of like an anniversary show there every year, and played there like so often. We put out a live record from the Rivoli. And it was kind of like us being, the kind of the Rivoli band that kind of like brought the kids into the Rivoli.
Right.
And sort of inadvertently turned that into a comedy club because, as they took off, then more and more comedy troupes, like Mark's brother had a troupe as well. And just,
Four on the Floor. Am I right? Is that Four on the Floor? Mark's brother?
I don't think so. They had a TV series for a while. I forget what they were called.
Is Mr. Canoe? I get my troops mixed up from this era. Oh, no. Oh, okay. They had the Sex Pistols theme song, maybe. It'll come to me in a minute, but I do remember the Mark McKinney's brothers troupe having a show on CBC.
I feel bad even saying Mark McKinney's brother rather than saying his name.
I know. Well, listen, I have, let me get the answers here real quick.
God, those people that are like in their dark basement right now, fuck all forever.
The Vacant Lot.
Vacant Lot.
Nick McKinney.
Yeah.
Okay, shout out to Nick McKinney. And the Vacant Lot, which I did enjoy, and I do believe they did open with a Sex Pistols song, Vacant Lot, and not the Four on the Floor, which was a different comedy troupe. I don't think they were Toronto based. But okay, we got this all right, so we can stop calling him Mark's brother. We can just call him Nick. But it was very funny, The Vacant Lot. Thought it was very good. But this perfect storm that you're describing, I think this is amazing that but just to clarify something you said off the top. So you guys were there for every taping and you're playing, but when we tune in on CBC and we hear Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet playing Having an Average Weekend, it's one version they recorded that they just kept using every single episode.
Yeah, we re-recorded.
That's what I thought, and then I got this mind blow in the dock, and then I thought, it blew my mind to pieces, because it's like, no way is that live on the floor every single episode, and it's not live on the floor every episode. Right?
Well, you're right. You shouldn't believe everything. You were right. You trust your instinct.
And I'm going to call Paul Myers. Paul Myers, come on, Paul. I'm going to call him right now. Shout out to Mike Myers, also a local comedy person you might have heard of. Who knows, right? But
I once mistook. I went to a concert, and as I made my way down the aisle to my seat, I see, the empty seats and the person next to it. And I was like, hey, Paul. And he's like, oh, no, it's Mike. Like, oh, sorry. Oh, my God. Sorry. I thought you were Mike.
You're not as famous as that Gravelberries guy. I'm looking for the Gravelberries guy. Who are you? Okay. So I'm now going to try to, now that we have a rapport now, and I'm digging this very much, but I'm going to stir up some shit now because I got a note from Hadley Obadiah. I hope I say that right. Hadley Obadiah, who wants me to play the old intro to The Daily Show and ask for your thoughts, because Hadley is of the opinion, and I agree with him, that this Daily Show theme copied Having an Average Weekend. Are you ready? I only pulled a little clip because how much could I find on YouTube? Let's listen together.
June 18, 2007. From Comedy Central's World News headquarters in New York, this is The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Oh my God.
That was the best I could do. Okay? That's the best I could do. But you hear it, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
everybody steals from each other.
But no one's ever approached you and said, "Hey, you know a good lawyer? Let's get some of that Daily Show money."
No. We don't ever want to open that can of worms, lest they come looking at us.
That's right. Glass houses and all that. Absolutely. Okay. So now we got Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet. There's a couple of people you worked with I'm going to want to talk about specifically, but let me play a little more of you Shadowy Men on a Shadowy. For the record, definitively, where does that name come from, Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet? That name for a band?
Well, we thought we were going to do only one show. We didn't really intend to play live. And so we all made lists of kind of band names, and it's not a very interesting story, but Brian had made a mixed cassette for Reed that he had done an illustration on the cover of, and the cassette was called The Shadow of a Shadowy Man. And then so we kind of took these various names that we'd added to our own band suggestion name list and put a bunch of them together to make it sound like it was like the title of a movie rather than a band name. We wanted something that was like uncomfortably long, something we regretted much later when we kept going and had to use an X-Acto knife to cut out all those letters.
Well, it's even typing it. Like I was tweeting about, Don Pyle from Shadowy Men or Shadowy Planet. I got to keep. I'm still typing.
Yeah. It was a one show name that stuck with us for 40 years.
All right, I get it now. Okay, so let us listen to a song, and again, we're gonna talk about some people, sadly, who are no longer with us. So just not to bring everybody down, but I'm hoping that you can remember some people that we lost, and some of these people were very close to you. But first, let me play a little of this song. You could pair this song, they don't call them Chihuahuas anymore, with Bruce's Terriers. Be a nice little pairing there if you wish. But okay, so let's talk about sport fishing, the lure of the bait, the luck of the bait. How did you come to be, I want to say the word produced, but Steve Albini never liked that term, but how did you come to be recorded by Steve Albini in Chicago? Give me that story.
Well, he definitely wasn't the producer with us. We did work on him on one album that he definitely was the producer, and it was a very different role. Sorry, how did we come to work with him?
Okay, yeah, and then because we just lost Steve Albini, and kind of famous for not producing, like just capturing you guys, your sound the best he could as like a recording engineer.
Yeah.
So like what is, like when Steve Albini produces you, like any insight into the world of Steve Albini, kind of fascinated by this guy.
Well, we connected with him. We had this kind of weird Chicago connection, which came out of a show in Windsor, Ontario, where someone who was at the show in Windsor, where there were maybe like 40 people, moved to Chicago and ended up being roommates with Albini. So he heard our singles there, and kind of concurrently, he sent us a postcard, saying how much he liked the band. And this interview came out in a magazine called Your Flesh that in which they were asking him about, his pricing, how he determines like what he charges bands. And he said in that he would charge Depeche Mode $1 million, but he'd do Shadowy Men for free. So we were kind of like taken aback when we heard that, because, his stuff is pretty heavy and pretty abrasive, the music that he makes. And, we're not the kind of band that I would have ever thought that he would have any interest in. So, so many people were like calling me and, stopping me on the street. Oh my God, did you hear this?
Yeah, that's quite the quote.
Yeah.
Literally.
So we had this kind of strange invitation from a couple of people to play at what turned out to be a wedding in Chicago. And the wedding guests included that guy Botch, who bought our record in Windsor and ended up being our booking agent. He runs one of the biggest booking agents in the U.S. now. Albini was there, band members from Wilco and the Cocktails and And, the bride and groom were both in bands, and we played at Lounge Acts, like the most wonderful club in Chicago. And so like we instantly had this like, connection with all these people, and it was a great night, a lot of fun. And so we decided to go and record with Steve. So our first session with him was in his home before he built Electrical Audio, the big studio that he had constructed from scratch. We went to his home. The band played in the basement in a tiny little room next to the furnace, and then his mix console was like up on, I don't remember if it was a second floor or a third floor, but I just remember him like running up and down the stairs a lot. So we did that session with him, and those were for like singles and compilation tracks and stuff, and hit it off really well. He was super sweet. Like when we arrived, it was on a long weekend in the States of Thanksgiving, and he had made this like full like turkey like gourmet Thanksgiving dinner for us.
Wow.
So that was kind of like we're like, we love you. Like, can we move in?
It sounds too good to be true. It sounds too good. And am I right that he's not invoicing you, or?
Oh no, I mean, like that's the thing. Everybody asks, like, it's like, well, if he said he'd do you for free, of course you took advantage of it, didn't you? No, we're very much a fair pay band, and right. We paid him his usual rate,
but not the Depeche Mode rate.
No, not the Depeche Mode rate, but Depeche Mode did offer to pay him $1 million to record a record for him, and he turned it down.
What did he get from Nirvana for In Utero? Do you have any insight into that?
I read it recently, and it's something like $350,000 or something like that. Okay. I know he refuses to take points or take any back end deals. Yeah, which is something that like we really respected and related to that, because like we had. At some point, we had talked to other people about doing things, and as soon as they start talking about points, we're like, "Oh fuck!" Like it's like I just like we all have just visions of bookkeeping into eternity.
Well, you can point to movies that were massive successes, box office, bonanzas, and the creative accountants behind the scenes will tell you, it lost money. Like I just feel like with the point system, the game is rigged. And the creative accountants can take a huge success and tell you at the end of the day that no, this project lost money.
Yeah. Well, Steve was a great, like, ideal for us because we didn't want a producer. We didn't need a producer.
Right.
We needed someone who could record things well.
Right.
And he definitely did that. And, when we recorded Sport Fishing, so we went back, we recorded with them like 5 times. Right. Not just Shadowy Men, Photocomb, the band that Reed
we're going to get there, yeah.
had after that, we did. And then Shadowy Men played on Fred Schneider's album, Just Fred. That was an album that Steve actually was the producer on.
Fascinating story there. Okay, so let us talk about, because like you mentioned, I mentioned Sport Fishing, and then you mentioned Sport Fishing. Is that the end of Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet? Is that like that's the last
album? The last album. The last thing that we did.
That's 93.
The last thing that we did was the Fred Schneider album.
Right. Okay. So why does the band split up?
I think at that point we worked so intensely. We'd basically have like a third of the year to write and record music, a third of the year to tour, and then a third of the year to work on Kids in the Hall. So we were pretty intensely busy, and we planned on taking a year off, and we saved up money for quite a while so that we could basically I was playing, we were all wanting to do other things. I was in a couple of other bands, we just wanted to do different things. And so during that year off, right at the beginning of that year off, Reed was diagnosed with cancer. And as much as I was really looking forward to being away from the two of them and doing other things, because of what Reed was going through, we just kept hanging out and writing songs, and so we wrote all these songs for like a year. We would, get together all the time, and, we were social and that. And then at the end of that year, we did the Fred Schneider album, and we were pretty aware that, except Brian had started another band. He was like putting out a record with his band. We had started this band Phonocomb with Dallas Good and Beverly Breckenridge, who, I'd played with Beverly and in Fifth Column, and Dallas, of course, was like just at the beginning of the Sadies. And it was just like we were having like such a great experience. And I think it was just like such a tough year for Reed that we were just like, so, going back to this other thing doesn't feel really good. Doing what we're doing right now feels great. It's like, we have all this freedom. We got to like Touch and Go agreed to put out a record, and then, they were like, I love them as a label and as people. And, so it was just like, it just seemed pretty easy. It was like one of those decisions that was not too difficult to let go of, even though it was kind of, we were making our living at it, and, pretty emotionally tied up. But, I think there were just like enough sort of like hard feelings about, how things were sort of like towards the end that it was easy to sort of like, let's just put this on ice.
Well, my sincere condolences on we lost Reed Diamond, I guess 2001. He passed away far too soon, and I'm sorry for your loss there.
Yeah, thank you. It's been weird, it just happens to everybody, but it is supremely weird, first like for Reed to die, and then, just like. Well,
okay. I was going to say, you're going to hear another sincere condolence, because I was wondering actually maybe if I can play a little Phonocomb, and then we could talk about Dallas, if you don't mind. But let's play a little. Because I did want to talk to you about this project anyways.
Do you dare to stay 1 second? Do you dare to stay 1 minute? Do you dare to stay 1 hour in a haunted house? Do you dare to walk the squeaky stairs and sleep on the creaky floor? Do you dare to stay till dawn in a haunted house? When your knees start to shake and your teeth start to chatter, will you stay all alone in the house? Do you dare to stay 1 hour, even 1 minute in a haunted house? In a haunted house.
That's Chad Fair, right? On vocals, that's Chad Fair. And
oh my God, I haven't heard this in so long. It actually sounds really good.
Don't act so surprised, okay, Don?
Well, I forgot about this part of the kind of like the Shadowy Men coming apart thing, because this friend had made a documentary about the group Half Japanese that Jad is the singer in, and he was going to be coming up to Toronto for the film, and he asked if we would, consider backing Jad up for a show. And so we did it, and then it was just like total joy to do so. We, decided to do a record together. So we wrote a bunch of songs with Jad, like, Shadowy Men did. And then when it came time to record them, Brian didn't want to do it. So, that was part of the sort of like conflict, sort of hard feelings at the end that, Brian was just, not interested. So we asked Dallas to do it. We knew him, and, knew what a great guitar player he was. He was a big fan of Half Japanese and just absolutely sweet guy. So, we knew him, but not, obviously as intimately as we, later became. So, we asked Dallas to play guitar on it, and he was totally thrilled and kind of intimidated because, he's a fan of Brian's and definitely inspired by the way Brian plays. He was clearly an influence on one of many influences on Dallas's way of playing. We did the Jad Fair album together, which was, fun and easy to do, and Dallas recorded it himself, and him and I mixed it together. So then immediately Jad asked Dallas, like, oh, do you want to join Half Japanese and go on tour in Europe? And, Dallas was like a teenager. So it was like, it's just like, oh my God, like, this band asks me to do an album with them. And then now I'm in Half Japanese and going to Europe. And so it was his first time touring Europe. And, we all remain friends with Jad since then, And Dallas did stuff off and on with Jad and with a couple people from Half Japanese, Jason Willett.
Wow. I had Brian Good from the Good Brothers on, so I've had his uncle, I guess, so that's his uncle.
Dallas's uncle. It's Bruce's twin brother.
Right. Just so I offered my condolences to him because we talk about, losing someone too young. I mean, I think early 50s, I want to say, Dallas, that must have been awful news to receive.
49.
Not even 50.
Yeah,
okay.
Not even 50. Yeah, of course. It was like an awful shock, like, unexpected, an undiagnosed condition. And, Dallas and I, we live on the same street and we talk regularly. It's like rare that 3 days would go by that we didn't speak, and we hadn't spoken at this time for 3 days. And then, I was thinking that I got to call Dallas. I want to tell him about, something. And then his wife called and said, Dallas is gone. Wow. And I remember not understanding that what that could mean, and I remember I said, gone where? So yeah, it was very unexpected. And just of course, Reed dying was I awful. And, your mother dying is awful, and, various people that in your life. But, I think you kind of mentally prepare yourself for, your 87-year-old mother to go, or your friend who has terminal cancer. But Dallas was so unexpected, and just kind of like a flame that was not diminished at all when it was put out. So, just one of those things that's just, it's still very hard to comprehend. And, I think I see him all the time, walking down the street, and, it's shocking. And just I've, just have such sadness for that happening. There were just so many things that were happening for Dallas. The Sadies always I always felt like they were just each album, when I would hear it, really for their last 3 albums, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the one that's going to kind of put them into a larger audience, and Dallas isn't going to have to work so hard. He's going to be set for kind of life, that they just kind of need to get into this, echelon where they have a song that, somebody covers and has a big hit with, or a theme song in a TV show, or some where they're, or one of their own songs, just busting out in a big way. And it was just always on the verge. I always felt like it was just on the verge. And then their last album, it was so horrible for it to come out right after Dallas died, and it be such an amazing album. And I think it's really the first album that they did where, where I really heard them being open to working with a producer. They'd had producers on all their other records, but, I know from working with them that Dallas is, I don't want to say controlling, but he has a very, very clear idea about what he wants. He's, really open to working with other people on particular things, like, improving his vocal. Like, that was something that was really, really significant in working with, like, Gary Louris, who did a couple of their records, was really helping Dallas kind of like, work with his voice in a way that he, sang his best. And also just kind of him and Travis, getting so like locked in and just, exquisite in their harmonies, so yeah, that last album is so good. Colder Streams. And he has another album that he did with Richard Reed Parry from Arcade Fire. The two of them did an album together that kind of came about from their mutual love of the Everly Brothers. So that album has, been finished. Richard had to, they were so close to having that finished, and Richard had to finish it on his own and mix it on his own. But that record's getting close to. I think they're looking for somebody to put it out right now. But just like amazing that Dallas is doing an album where that features his voice so much. Something that he was just like, I just saw him over the years, just like cringe and hate his voice but then like so many people who do it all the time or who are wanting to learn, he just got better and better.
Speaking of people we lost, bright creative people we lost too early, now I'm thinking of Gord Downey, because it was the Tragically Hip that introduced me to the Sadies. Gord Downey was a massive fan, and I know Dallas's brother played quite a bit on the Gord Downey solo albums as well. But just, what a tragic loss to lose Dallas. And then,
I mean, the thing is, like, there's just so much loss around. Like, what's his name? Towns. Oh God, what's Steve Earle's son?
Towns. Yeah, Towns Van. Yes. That was tragic, that loss, absolutely.
Yeah, like, the Sadies had just toured with him and, been, wanting to do a record with him. And then, like, Dallas, like, left on the tour, like, really kind of, not being so excited because he was going to be playing keyboards on it. It's like, he's a great piano player and great, but, he's definitely much more comfortable with the guitar. So it was, an opportunity for the Sadies to, be in front of a new audience. And then he came back just like, in Justin Townes Earle. That's his name.
That's his name, Justin Townes Earle. Absolutely. Now, just, a lot of sadness surrounding you. And this is unfortunate because, you lost Reed to cancer. And then when you do finally, I guess 2012, you guys get Shadowy Men and a Shadowy Planet reunite to play some live gigs. And Dallas fills in for Reed, so on bass. So Dallas Good is the replacement for Reed Diamond on bass.
Yeah, well, some of that language, I like replacement, I could, one of those things could never happen. And reunite even, it's like we never ever felt like it was a reunion because, it was like each of us we were quite insular and each of us had such a significant part that, I couldn't imagine the band with anybody else. I remember really early on, or maybe not like so early on, but during one of the Kids in the Hall tapings, I had some like really bad back issues and I couldn't walk and couldn't play. And so, excuse me, the Reed and Brian, we, talked about it and decided to ask this friend who was a drummer to play these shows. And I was like, this is it. Like, they're going to hear what they sound like with a real drummer and I'm going to be out of the band. And, I went to one of the tapings, and saw them and I was like instantly relieved. Like, oh my God. Like, it's like, even though like this guy is a way better player, he's making the songs worse because, I shouldn't say that in case he hears it, but well, it's just like a
this replacement drummer?
A different feel,
It's so. David Quinton Steinberg. Who are we talking about here? Okay, very interesting. You sound like you have imposter syndrome when I hear it in the headphones here. That you at some point people are going to catch on and realize that, oh, you don't belong here. Right? That's imposter syndrome, right? Like, I just hope nobody catches on that they have this, I'm a shitty drummer. In this,
I mean, it took me years to be to feel comfortable playing in front of other drummers. Like I remember our first couple of years, I'd just be like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed to be playing, in front of
But why don't judge Neil Peart's going to judge your technique and come here, kid, let me show you how it's done.
It's just, of course, you realize afterwards that nobody cares, and if they care, then so what? But I definitely had a bit of embarrassment or self-consciousness when I'm going into Steve's music to the drum department and buying stuff because I've been playing for 4 weeks and I'm making a living at it, and and they're working at Steve's.
Excuse me, where's the drum stuff?
Oh, yeah, where's the one that's really long and wide? Yeah, the floor tom. Yeah.
Well, that's funny. But you come from this this punk background, right? This DIY punk ethos. I feel that would be perfect. I'm not really a drummer, but I'm gonna figure this out and go. It's
definitely informed us. They just
it's right on brand.
They let us know that those things are possible.
Absolutely. Right on brand. One funny thing, I was amused when I was listening to a lot of Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet, and I'm going to close with a different project, actually, because you're in New Toronto right now. New Toronto is on the water. It is just a little bit west of Mimico. People in Toronto seem to know where Mimico is. They're never quite sure where New Toronto is. But there is actually a neighborhood that is to the west of us, before you get to Mississauga. That's a teaser for a band I'm going to ask you about in a minute. You can figure it out, Don. Okay. But I was amused by the fact that you named your 2016 box set, "Oh, I guess we're a fucking surf band after all." That's great. Right?
Well,
because most 99.9% of people listen to Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet and will say, that's great fucking surf rock, man. That's a great surf band.
So much of that it was just playing with. It's just so easy to wind people up. And so we had a song called "We're Not a Fucking Surf Band."
Right.
And it was, we would just get called surf band. And, you get really tired of it because it was just it's don't they hear that we listen to Alice Cooper or The Damned or, all those things. And, it was just just in media, when one person tells a story, then, 6 other people after them in the media tell the exact same story because they read the first one.
Right.
And so, the surf band thing, it was definitely, there and definitely part of what we were doing. But even the distinction of Link Ray, who was, a huge influence on us, and the Cramps, I never think about those bands as being surf bands, they're kind of a lot sort of dirtier and grimier. And so I think we kind of thought that we were more aligned with those artists than, Jan and Dean. But it was an inevitable part of what we did. And also there's just so much surf stuff that we loved.
Sure.
So when we were trying to think of a title for the box, we had a title that we were very close to using, and then almost at the very last minute.
Okay, what was that title? Do you remember?
I think it was When We Were Young Fresh Fellows, which was, had the band name Young Fresh Fellows in it, who were friends of ours, and it's not as good a title.
I will tell you right now, straight up, I'm telling you this because we are now friends. You are now an FO Tim, a friend of Toronto Mike. "Oh, I guess we're a fucking surf band after all" is a much better title.
Well,
that's a great fucking title.
I have to agree. And it's it's just kind of so many people were like, aha, see?
You admitted it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. So with the other title, we thought, no, this might make people think this is a Young Fresh Fellows record, and that could get really confusing.
Well, it's a great title. And again, like I said, I've been diving into the catalog. Does it annoy you at all? And I'm making up these numbers. I didn't do any surveys or anything, but that 99% of people please play Having an Average Weekend. Like this, I'm going to guess that's the 99.9% of people are like, hey, Shadowy Men or Shadowy Planet, please play Having an Average Weekend. Like, does that annoy you at all? Because you've got a vast catalog of fantastic songs.
No, not at all. People, the thing that people ask me most is like, don't you get bored playing those songs? Because like we played for 10 years and then another 10 years with Dallas.
Right.
And there's something very different about playing a song than there is about listening to a song. And even sometimes like listening to it, I think the one thing about Having an Average Weekend is in my mind, it's slightly removed from being us because it has this, very distinct association with something else.
Sort of like, so is that like if somebody went to, I don't know, they went to a fellow drummer, let's say Tyler Stewart from the Bare Naked Ladies, and hey, play that Big Bang Theory song. Like it's like you're just, it's that's 1 degree away.
It may be like that, but we play that song like, every time we played pretty much. Like, there were definitely times that we didn't play it for a long time, but when we started playing with Dallas, we played it because we were playing like long sets like we've never ever played before. When we were together the first time, like, we were always pretty aware of like, trying to not bore people and keeping it kind of like short and concise because our songs are like, some of them are a minute and a half long, Right. Like our last album was like 23 songs,
Well, that's punk, right?
When we started doing really long sets, we were playing like a lot, just basically let's play all of our favorite songs from our past. And
amazing here.
Yep.
Okay, so I've teased the neighborhood to the west of where you're sitting right now. I've teased that, and I'm going to play that. But very briefly, before I press play on this, and we close talking about it, unless I missed something and you want to bring it up, because there'll be like a catch-all at the end here. But I just want to say to you, Don, if you have any old cables, old electronics, old devices at home, don't throw it in the garbage because those chemicals end up in our landfill. Go to recyclemyelectronics.ca, put in your postal code, and then EPRA will say, hey, go here. They'll basically tell you where to go, where you drop it off, and it'll be properly recycled so those chemicals do not end up in our landfill. So recyclemyelectronics.ca. And last but not least, a good FOTM like yourself. His name is Bruce Dobigan. He wrote a book with his son, Evan, about hockey trades that sort of, these are huge hockey trades in the history, post-expansion, so since 1967, like the Gretzky trade, the Gilmore trade, there's a whole bunch of massive trades, Patrick Waugh trade. I have no idea. I'm going to ask now, Don, any interest in hockey? 0 or greater than 0?
Is there a number greater than? Well, I guess a number greater than 0 could be all of them.
There's lots of options of greater than 0.
I would say 0.
Okay, 0. So you do not have to take that.
I'm
book,
not going to take this
that's
one,
okay.
but
the baseball book.
This one definitely interests me.
You and Blair and Alan, if you're listening, you're invited too, of course. Come by for the game. It's it's free. So come by for the game, 2 p.m. on July 7th. And then swing by. I'm recording beyond the left field fence. And come by and pop on the mic and say hi. That would be amazing. You could review Blair's hair.
Even if you're trying to push us away.
I actually owe Blair a great, much gratitude. He went to Burlington to pick up Rick Emmett and bring him to a Toronto Maple Leafs baseball game so I could chat him up on my mic. So thank you, Blair, for picking up Rick Emmett. And I know they have I believe it's a Blair Packham album. Oh, no, you know what? Is it a Blair Packham album? Maybe it's a Rick Emmett album produced by Blair Packham. Anyways, they collaborated on some new music that I'm going to be able to hear very, very soon. So shout out to all those good people. All right, let me press play on this. Do you know, this is like Toronto trivia for you, Don. What neighborhood do you live in? Approximately.
Well, I don't know what it's called. I live in the Junction Triangle.
The Junction Triangle. Okay, so you're like, I'm going to say like maybe where DuPont and Annette kind of meet Dundas. Is that it? Or are we?
That's what, that's kind of like, yeah, around there.
We'll just say around. I know where you are around approximately. So, okay. So do you know the name of the neighborhood that is just west of New Toronto?
Mississauga?
No, it's between Mississauga and New Toronto.
I know what you're trying to get me.
Yeah, say those 2 words.
I'm on to you.
Say it to
it's
me.
Long Branch.
Lucky me, this is Long Branch. Don, what is your role? What is your involvement? Tell me how you're involved with Long Branch.
Well, I am the drummer in the band, and I actually recorded and mixed this this recording as well. Some of the people in the band, Lisa Myers and Sally Lee, I've known them for years and years from Shadowy Men playing with their previous bands, Chicken Milk and Venus Cures All. And Laura Pitkanen, who's the singer, had a very strange... I was in the band Fifth Column, and I met Laura when she came to audition to be the guitar player in the band, and it was a really, really uncomfortable, awkward situation for her. And I just joined the band, so I kind of like, sort of took her aside and said, "Don't worry, it's not you. It's it's them." It was weird stuff happening. So when they started this band, I had been asked by different people at different times to play drums, and just wasn't really interested, or the timing wasn't right or whatever. And they asked me at the right time, and I really liked the people that I was going to be doing it with, including Darcy Good at this time, who is Dallas's cousin. So I said yes, and here we are. It's almost 10 years that we've been doing it. We've just, I'm putting the art together for our second album. Our third album is all recorded. And,
amazing. Long Branch.
Yeah.
And they're named, I'm hoping, I just assumed that they're named after the neighborhood here in southwest Toronto.
Well, we all sort of came out of either living on Queen Street, working on Queen Street, playing music on Queen Street. And so the Queen Streetcar, certain ones that were going out to Long Branch would say Long Branch on it. So to us, it was kind of like Oz, this sort of mysterious place in the distance that that
end of the line
that our streetcar would go to. And
have you ever been to Long Branch?
Oh my God, I've been out here so many times. I love this neighborhood. I think it's actually fantastic. I feel like it's
calling your name.
Well, yeah, I've thought about it at different times. I think I'm probably more inclined to move to Spain than Long Branch at this point. But
right.
I grew up in Toronto, so all these neighborhoods, I've been to. I feel like I've been everywhere in Toronto, multiple times, and I have a pretty good sense of the character. And one thing I love about New Toronto and Long Branch, this area, is that it is an older established communities. I mean, before it blew up as high-rise land, down at the Lakeshore and whatnot.
But those blow-ups you're talking about actually skip New Toronto. So they're happening in Mimico and they're happening in Long Branch. But literally New Toronto is stuck in time.
Yeah, which
completely stuck in time.
I'm so grateful for, because there are certain places like this part of Lakeshore and certain parts in Kingston Road and the East End are they are Toronto looked in,
right.
As I remember, in 1970,
Right. You can film your music videos down here if you want to capture that 1970s Toronto flavor. Don, this was amazing, man. Loved it very much. Kind of ran through the whole history of Shadowy Men on the Shadowy Planet and more. And you're a talented guy. And I got to thank Alan Zweig for connecting me to you.
Well, thanks, Toronto Mike. May I call you Mike?
You may call me Mike, yes. I will allow just you because you seem like a nice guy. Did I miss anything that you, on your way here? Maybe you're on the bus and you're like, oh, I would love to be able to tell this story or share this.
No.
Did I hit it all? No, there's none of that. Okay. So Long Branch, I'm trying to think. So Long Branch, part of Long Branch is a park called Marie Curtis Park.
Yep.
During the pandemic, we had what are called Toronto Mike listener experiences in that park, where I would bring the beer to the park and we'd all gather and responsibly drink a alcoholic beverage and chat and stuff. And I'm here to tell everyone, including you, Dawn, that the 15th Toronto Mike listener experience is going to take place at Great Lakes Brewery, which is 30 Queen Elizabeth Boulevard, down the street from the Costco, not too far from Royal York and Queensway. Everybody's invited June 27 from 6 to 9 p.m. I will feed you with Palma Pasta food. Your first drink is on the house. There is no ticket to buy. You don't have to RSVP. Just show up and hang out. And Don, you're absolutely invited June 27th.
Oh, thank you.
All right, I hope to see you there. Okay, hope to see you there.
Thanks, Mike.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,500th 508th show. You can follow me all over the place. Go to torontomike.com, but you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky all over the place at Toronto Mike. Is there a place you'd like to send people to find out more about you, Don, or Long Branch, or Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet? Anywhere you'd like to send people?
Just put any of those names in the internet. You'll find something.
There you go. Path of Least Resistance. Much love to all who made this possible. Again, that's Great Lakes Brewery, that's Palma Pasta, that's RecycleMyElectronics.ca, that's the Toronto Maple Leafs baseball team, that's Moneris, and that's Ridley Funeral Home. See you all Wednesday when I'm recording live from Glen Abbey Golf Course. It's the Joe Carter Classic. I have no idea who will talk to me, but I'm told people like Joey Batts and Josh Donaldson, Wendell Clark, who the hell's there? Joe Carter, of course, is there. But I'm told maybe Jim McMahon. Who else is going to be there? Find out. Jack Armstrong, a whole bunch of interesting people.
Have you broadcast live from Ridley Funeral Home?
Not yet. I just found out from you in this episode. The acoustics might be pretty damn good.
And there's probably some really interesting people there.
If I do, I'm going to use that Halloween music I've suddenly discovered from your Jad Fair and the Phonocomb. What the hell is a Phonocomb again? Is that like a musician?
Brush.
Yes. A record brush. Shout out to Alan Zweig again. That man knows vinyl. See you all Wednesday.
And their brokering stocks, the class struggle explodes. And I play this guitar just the best that I can. Well, maybe I'm not, and maybe I am. Who gives a damn? Because everything is coming up rosy and green. Yeah, the wind is cold, but the smell of snow warms me today. And your smile is fine, and it's just like mine, and it won't go away. 'Cause everything is rosy and gray. Well, I've kissed you in France, and I've kissed you in Spain. And I've kissed you in places I better not name. And I've seen the sun go down on Sacré-Cœur.